Okay, that makes me live on YouTube. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay. All right, good afternoon. I am live. Yep, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to you this beautiful Thursday afternoon. My name is Mary Beth Chima. I am the convener of the Parenting Through Mentorship community on Facebook and on YouTube. All right, welcome to this live broadcast. If you're here with me, please holler at me. Say hello. Let me know I have got company with me. Let me know I have you with me. Say hello in and don't just stay in the background. Just say hello so that we know we have company. Okay. So today we are talking about another issue on parenting. We do this every Thursday, and we call it the PTM Hangout, where we come and talk about parenting issues that are common, parenting issues that are universal, right? Doesn't matter where you are as a parent, right? These issues come up or these things come up, and we have to look at them, isn't it? Great. So if you're here, make some noise in the background. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know your name and where you're watching from. And please, if you're catching the replay, it's fine that you also do that. If you're watching us for the first time, also say so that we can give you a PTM welcome. We love to welcome new people in the community. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome also. Thank you very much. All right, so today we are looking at 7 ways that we're looking at 7 ways your life experiences can shape your child's purpose. Long one, right? So in simple terms, the things that you have experienced in life, the experiences that you had growing up, is it possible that these experiences can make or mar your child? Is it possible that these experiences can hinder your child's purpose, or that it can be a reason for you to empower your children? So that's what we are going to be looking at today. So if you are here and you have a friend who needs to be here, you are here, you have a friend who is a parent, who is parenting young people, then I think this is a good time to just tag them, send them a message, or just simply tag them, in the comments so that they can join us. That is, if you've not invited them here already. But even if you have, just tag them so that they can join us. All right. So according to CJ Heck, it says that we are actually a product of our environment. Right? As human beings, we are a product of the environment in which we grow. And that environment is made up of more than just the place, isn't it? It's made up of just the place. It's made up of the people that we encounter, right? The people that we encounter in our lives, the people we come across at different points in our life, right from when we are infants, every one of them. So the people we come across, right, the things that we hear, the people that have access to us, the platforms that have access to us, or the platforms that we have access to. So the people that we meet, the books that we read, right, the events that come up in our lives, those experiences and the adventures that we have, all of these things will come together to form the human being that you will become, or form the human being that you are. So what usually happens, right, when we become parents, right? Eventually, a lot of us will grow up and then we decide to start families of our own after all. We are obeying we're obeying scriptures, right? Or obeying the will of God, that we go forth and then yield, go forth and then multiply, isn't it? So eventually, a lot of us will become parents. So at the point where we become parents, what happens is naturally we go back to the only experience that we have in that area. Our subconscious would automatically presents to us the only experience that we have in that area. And what is that experience? It's the experience of our own parents, or of the way we have been parented. So yes, At the point where you become a parent, the first way you will parent, or the only knowledge or experience, or the only thing you will go back to, would be how your parents have parented you. So that's why, whether we are conscious or unconscious, we are parenting the way our parents have parented us, consciously or unconsciously. That's the only experience we have. And life is about building on experiences. So that's why your child goes to school as a preschooler, right? When he gets into preschool, he's going to build on the experiences that he already has from home. When he moves from preschool to elementary school, he's going to build on the experiences that has been created in preschool, or the teacher is going to leverage on the experiences that have been created or that have been made right from preschool. And that's where, so it's like a building block. Our entire life is a building block. It's like a building block where blocks are mounted on blocks, really basically blocks are mounted on blocks, and that's what forms the adult that we become. So naturally, you will go back, default how you were parented. That is the only experience that you have, and that's where you're going to build your parenting experiences, or that's where you're going to build how you parent your children from, basically. Except there is a twist, isn't it? Except there is a twist. Because the only tangible thing, only tangible event, tangible experiences that you have is the one that have been created while you were growing. Naturally, you will hold on to those. Except, as I said, there is a twist. And what can that twist be? The twist can either be that you have decided to visit, for one reason or the other, you have decided to visit how you were parented. Right? You have decided to go back and look at how you were raised, and you're able to say to yourself, wow, my parents did a great job here. However, I would want to do a better job at this than they did. And so because of that, I'm going to have to be more intentional. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to start doing this. Now, how do I know what to do? I mean, in order for me to do better than my parents did. So it means I would have to get more knowledge. So that's where books will come in. That's when, webinars like this come in. That's when attending parenting courses come in. That's when, so basically you deliberately decide to get more knowledge in this area. That is the only way you can begin to parent away from the way you were parented. Now, many times we think as parents that, oh no, I'm going to do differently. Oh, because my parents did this, my parents did, I'm going to do differently. You can say that all you want. The moment you're not able to get superior knowledge that will allow you to do differently from what your parents did, every time an event, that resembles what you've been through before, every time a circumstance rises that resembles what you've gone through before, I promise you, 99% of the time you will react the same way, okay? The same way you saw your parent or whoever react, given the same situation while you were growing. So yes, it is not enough to say, oh, I didn't like this or I didn't like that and I want to do differently. Okay, it's not enough to say that. You must gain superior knowledge, or you must learn tools and strategies that will help you do differently from what your parents did. Now, I sent a post earlier, yesterday or today, I don't know, yesterday or maybe earlier today, and I said, have you heard people say things like, my children will never go through the hardship that I went through growing up? Or you hear people say that. You hear people say things like, oh no, I can never allow, maybe a parent that has female children in their home would say, I could never allow a male visitor or relative stay in my house and all of that. We hear statements like this many times, right? Often than not, these statements come from our experiences, or experiences that we have had, experiences that we know about or we have heard stories about, right? And what this leads to is we usually begin to parent from a place of fear. Right? So we take all those our experiences, and rather than look for how we can turn them into empowering, how we can turn them and use them to empower our children. What these experiences do to us is they make us fearful. They make us fearful. And so we begin to parent from a place of fear. And so that's what we're looking at. Okay? Because someone will ask me at this point, so what has all of this got to do with my child's purpose, isn't it? What has all these how I was parented, how I was not parented, what has it all got to do with my child's purpose? So your child has been given to you, right? And you become a custodian of that child. So as a parent, you are a custodian of the child. You are a guardian to that child. Right, you're a guardian, you're a custodian to that child, you are a teacher to that child. You are going to have to be the one to guide the child towards finding and living their purpose. So basically, being a custodian sums it all. So you are a custodian of this person's destiny, this person's purpose, basically, because we have seen cases where people have been, parents have been the reason why their children did not reach their full potential. Okay, there are cases like that where a child's purpose, or a child is not able to come to the fullness of their purpose, or the child is not able to live, right? Or a person is not able to live their purpose, or the person is not able to get expression, okay, for something that they love, something that is a talent, simply because they didn't have the right people, or they didn't have people in their lives who did something, right, to help them make the best or harness all of the potential that is within them. So in cases like this, you would look at it, and it's safe to say that these adults or these parents may actually be people who hindered the child's purpose. And purpose does not ride in a vacuum, right? Purpose does not ride in a vacuum. There are a lot of things, there are many premises upon which your child's purpose or your purpose will ride, right? So for you, you have that interest that through that interest, you are going to impact the world. Or you have that interest that through that interest, you're going to make a difference. You're going to live a full life. But there are certain things that if those things are not in place, it's going to hinder you from living that life of impact, that life of happiness, that fulfilling life for which you have been created. So we say these are premises, or these are things upon which your purpose will ride. And if those things are not in place, could lead to a hindrance of you or the child living their purpose. One of these things is skills. Right, skills. So your child has been blessed with this gift. Your child has been blessed with this talent. Your child has been blessed with this thing that is their easy, that they've always, that they love to do, and all of that. And that child grows, and for some reason, as a parent, you don't understand why the child is focused on this particular thing. Let's take, for instance, football, or take, for instance, music. Right. So right from when this child was 2, 3, you could see that the child, understood reading, and all of that. And before you know it, you find that the child is into music and musical instruments and all of that. The child just, every time there is music or anything that is related to this skill, your child becomes excited or is elated. But hey, as a parent, you don't understand why, you don't see what this is about, or you don't see that this is something that you can actually fan, or something that you can give the child expression in. So what do? You focus on go and study your book, go and read your book, or for some reason you even want to do it, but you don't have the opportunity, you don't know how to go about it, or you don't even have how to enable the child. So you see, this kind of child will probably grow up and never get a chance to express, never get a chance at expressing this particular gift or this particular talent that the child has. Okay, it could be sports. It could be sports, and for some reason, the child lives in an environment where there is no way to, harness this skill, or there is no way for expression. There are no facilities. I mean, these opportunities to fund this skill is not available. So in cases like that, you realize that, hey, the talent, the skill, the interest, the love for this thing might be there, but there is no opportunity for it to be expressed, isn't it? All right. So these are cases that we say, oh, okay. These are, cases where we say, yes, the child may have all of these, but the parents may be, the reason, or circumstance around the parents may be the reason why expression is not allowed. Right. So in the same way, your personal experiences, or the experiences that you have in your lives, could be that which comes in and stifles your child's purpose. Okay, now let's look at some of these experiences. Okay, I'm going to share one or two that are personal experiences. I'm going to share one or two that are personal experiences, and of course, others that, are general experiences that we can relate to. If you are here with me, please don't just stay in the background. Say something in the comments. Let's know that you are joining us or you are with us. And if you're catching the replay, please, by all means, let us know that you were catching the replay. All right. So some of these experiences, let's look at some of the experiences that we could have as, growing up, right, that could end up hindering our children if we don't stop and look at them. Okay, now let me talk a little about stopping and looking at these experiences, right? So as I said earlier on, what happens is, until there is a twist, right? Until there is a twist in, as you grow up, you will likely parent, or you will eventually parent the way you have been parented, until there is a twist. And that twist is that you decide to do an evaluation, or you decide to look into how you have been parented. So you decide to go and look inward. Now, in looking inward, you can see, or you may find out that, oh, your parents did an amazing job at raising you up. And so because of that, you would like to do, the same thing. But because, of course, scripturally, we're supposed to be better than our parents, even, isn't it? We're supposed to be the hope and dream of every parent is that your child is better than you are. All right. So yes, because you have been given the power, okay, and you've been expected to do even more than your parents. So you can leverage on what your parents did, and then, of course, expand it and do more with it. Now, even at that point, for you to know what to do more than your parents, it means that you are getting superior knowledge, or you would have to get superior knowledge in this area. So either way, you have to be learning. Either way, you have to be improving yourself. Either way, you have to be working on being a better parent. You have to be intentional as a parent for you to do better than your parents did. Okay? In other cases, you could find that, oh, my parents, you're being realistic, and this has nothing to do with not appreciating your parents, or trying to, abuse their memory, or whatever it is. Okay, for those of them who probably don't live and are not alive anymore. It's just, it has nothing to do with, your parents personally. It's you trying to look at your journey, evaluate your journey, and see how you can be a better parent through, this knowledge of that you're able to, this place, being able to go to this place and look at how you were raised. Now you look at it and you realize, okay, there is this my parents did that if they had done differently, I know that I could have, been better in this area, or I could have approached things better, or I could have made better choices, okay, in this area or in that area. I would have been more empowered in this area or in that area, basically. Now you can now take that and then begin to work on that. Okay, so I know this, and I know that my subconscious has got this in there, and if I am not careful, I'm going to relieve this in the life of my children, because hey, you will eventually do the same thing your parents did, except you decide to do differently intentionally. So you're able to look at it and you're saying, okay, based on this, or because I know that, okay, this was not empowering, I'm going to use this and create an empowerment from it for my children. Okay, but if you're not able to do this, you will find out that you will take these things and then approach them from a place of fear. You approach them from a place of fear, and that will end up not empowering your children. And that's what we are really talking about today. All right, so the first experience I will be talking about is the first experience I'll be talking about is actually mine, right? So growing up, I had to grow up. At some point, I had to leave my biological parents. All right, I had to leave my biological parents when I was about 13. Okay, I left home when I was about 12, 13. So I moved from, okay, I'm Nigerian. So I moved from Lagos where my parents lived and came over to Abuja to live with my aunts. So ironically, my aunt is a reverend sister. She still is. She's a reverend sister. And that was when I was just 12, 13, right? So I moved to go and live with my aunt, and it was a different, as in, it was like a 360-degree change in my life, right? I mean, I grew up with parents where, you know, you know what it is growing up with your parents. You could get away with a lot of things. You could get away with a lot of things. You could, I mean, just that you could get away with a lot of things. You know, there was all of that. You know, the boundaries were not as growing up. The boundaries were not that strict, and all of that. And then all of a sudden, I find myself in a religious community with my aunt and her sister, reverend sisters. So all of a sudden the dynamics were different, where you couldn't just switch the TV on and sit in front of the TV as you liked, right? You couldn't, I mean, I couldn't walk. You couldn't walk around in your little bomb shorts and all of that, right? Because, hey, this is a religious house. You know, I couldn't make the kind of noise that I made at home because, hey, this was a religious home, right? So basically, it was a whole 360-degree shift in what I knew as a teenager, or I mean, a preteen at the time, right? It was completely different and all that. Now, while I was there, I learned that you could, I mean, I learned to take no, a lot of no's, right? In fact, it was more like you got 90, I mean, out of 10 times that you needed or asked for, I needed or asked for something, chances are 8 of those times I will be told no. So if I didn't know what it meant to be told no as a child, right there with them, I knew what it meant to be told no. Okay. I also knew what it meant to be hardworking. So it was a case, it's a religious community. So you know how it's regimental. It's like growing up in a military camp, sort of. So basically, they have their principles, or they have, you know, they have what is acceptable. So they will wake up in the morning and they will have mass, you know, like before the mass, even they will have like morning prayers. So by 5:30, they're like done. Like they've woken up, they've dressed up, they've done all of those things. At 5:30, people are already in prayer, waiting for a priest, you know, to come and, you know, say the mass at 6 o'clock. So now this is me coming from my home, where you can sometimes you will sleep, you will wake up 10 minutes before school, you will wash your uniform and you do like the boo, 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 and then jump in and go to school. Sometimes you go to school late and all of that. And then all of a sudden, I was in a place where whether you liked it or you didn't like it, you woke up anyway. Okay, 4:30 was a deal. 4:30 was a deal for a 13-year-old. It was like a whole 360 degrees. Now, I could, you know, and these are let me leave it at just these two. There are many other things, isn't it? So now I could actually wake up as a parent, right, today and say, oh, my children, they will never go anywhere near this kind of people. I could do that. I could also decide, my children, Nobody's going to stress them. Nobody is going to stress them. I know what I went through just because I left my home. So no, they're not going to anybody's house. They stay in my house. I'm not allowing anybody to stress them. I could do that also, right? I could do that also. I could decide to be permissive as a parent because I got a lot of no growing up, because I was away from home. I could decide to be permissive. Oh, I understand what it meant like to be told no. So my children, as they ask me, I will give. As they ask me, I will give. I could decide to do that. Now, I will, by doing all of that, am I going to be empowering them? Okay, hi, Mary Max. Good to see you. Thank you. You love this, right? So, am I going to be empowering my children simply because I had these experiences that at the time, for a 13-year-old was negative, right? Somewhere in my subconscious, thinking about it, is probably still negative, isn't it? So, am I going to use this and empower and hinder my children from learning certain things? Or am I going to use this experience and empower my children? For instance, I could say to myself, you know something, at 13, this child might have to leave home and be with somebody for A, B, C, D reason. So why don't I start right now that he is 8? Why don't I start right now to teach him that in life, there are times where you will get no as an answer. And yes, many more times than you will get them from us. So, executive functioning skill, part of it is that you're able to adjust flexibility control, right? So that your child knows when I am away from home, there is a chance that I will get more no's, and that's going to be just okay. Another thing is, I could also say to myself, hey, anything could happen. For some reason, this child might be anywhere that I am not and may be required to wake up pretty early. So why don't I raise them right now, teaching them that you know something, you can wake up. Life begins, early to rise, how do they put it? I can't even remember. Early to bed, early, that one is early to bed, early to rise. But basically, I could say to the child, life, I say to my children, the real deal happens early in the morning. Deals are brokered in the morning. The stock market is up in the morning. How can you be sleeping? You will sleep and you wake up at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. You can sleep and wake up at 11 or 12 o'clock. And this is happening in the group, I hope. If it's in the group, you may not be able to share. Is it in the group? I hope it's in the group. Please let me know that this is happening in the PTM group. Please, I hope it's not happening on my personal Facebook handle. Oh, please, someone, could you let me know if this is happening in the PTM group and not on my profile? Anyway, let me move on. Okay, so basically, so I can decide. So I have decided to empower my children just because I know what it feels like, or I know that, things like this are possible. So from my experience as a 13-year-old leaving home, okay, I struggled, right? As a 13-year-old leaving home, I struggled because, okay, thank you very much, Ola. So as a 13-year-old, I struggled leaving home because, no, my parents did not prepare me for what it was or what to expect when I early to bed, early to rise. Yeah. So my parents did not prepare me for what I could meet out there if I've been leaving home early because, hey, so I went out and it was a lot of struggle. It was a lot of crying. Right? It was a lot of crying, when everybody's gone to sleep, I'm there crying because this is like different from anything that I know. I was made to work too hard. At home, I was about the last child, and so I could do what I wanted to do. I refused to do what I did here. There was no choice. So what did it teach me? What did it teach me? Or what can you use lessons like this to teach your children? You teach your children not to be entitled. So I can decide to take it and teach my children not to be entitled because I went through that experience growing up. I could teach them not to be entitled. I could also teach them to accept no, that they will find rejection at some point in their life. They will get no a lot of times in their life. So I will empower them, or I'm empowering them rather to know that, hey, it's not everybody that will say as many yeses to you as I or daddy would say, and that is just fine. Okay, so number two experience is being constantly judged. Right. So this is me, a Lagos girl. If you're a Nigerian person, if you grew up in, if you're Nigerian, right? So this is me, a child who grew up in Lagos, where it was a lot of there was a lot of liberalness, right? So there's a lot of being liberal and all of that. So all of a sudden, I leave Lagos and I see myself in Abuja. Okay, now I'm talking of Abuja in the mid 1990s, right? Why am I saying mid 1990s? What is that? Abuja in the early 1990s. Yeah. Abuja somewhere around 93, thereabout, 94. 94, 95, thereabouts. Yeah. So this is me living Lagos, where you can do as you like, anyhow, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, I am in Abuja and all that. Now, this is me living a regular family home where I was the last child, and I can go out and play until it is past 6 or to 7, and they begin to scream, "Harry, come and wash plates," that kind of thing. Okay, come and wash plates. All of a sudden, this is me now in a religious community where, who born you? As in, I don't get it. Why are you outside the house in the first place? So this is me in a religious community where whether I played or didn't play was where play was out, basically, where there was no room for all of that, and all. So this is me. And so somewhere in my head, because I'm talking 12 going on 13. I'm still a child, isn't it? I was still a child and all that. So, and then of course I had friends from regular homes, so I went to school with children from regular homes, and I come back with them, and I want to just chill around and fool myself, just play around and all of that. And you come home and it's a lot of, where have you been, where did you go to, who asked you this, where did you so it was a lot of judgment. By the time I was like a full teenager, 14, 15, right? It was a case, you're walking down the road with a couple of friends, boys, girls, coming back from school or from lesson and all of that. Then you get to the front of the house and it's like, who was that? Who was that boy? Where did you go with him? And no, nothing. We're just coming from lesson. See me now, fine black girl, isn't it? So I had plenty toasters now, 13, 14. You know how it is now, growing up. 13, 14. So you're coming back from lesson, and you will see one boy now that is trying to hit on you. And of course, I was 13, 14. So it was 13, 14, 15. So of course now it's you don't have to say yes, but the joy of it was in the toasting. Can you feel me? And girls, can you feel me? Yes, so fine girl, plenty level. You've been in Lagos, grew up in Lagos. All of a sudden, you're in Abuja. This kind of phase one, phase one, dry everywhere, dry, that kind of thing. Of course. And then, yes, black fine girl. So of course I will have toasters. But didn't mean that. You can feel me very much. Yeah. It didn't mean that I was doing anything. I was just a regular teenager enjoying the attention of the opposite sex. I wasn't going nowhere. I knew where I was coming from or where I was going to. I knew better than to branch and go anywhere. I knew better than not to arrive at home 20 minutes after lesson. I knew better. But hey, even at that, it was a lot of judgment. You did this, you did that, you did that. Now, I could decide, as a parent, I could decide to judge every child around me also. And we will say, no, I won't do that, because I know, no, we don't remember these things. Yes, that's the reason you beat that household who is with you, and that 14, 15-year-old house girl who is with you every time they step out to grind beans and they don't come back in 10 minutes. Is the reason 1,001 things come into your head and everything. At that point, you don't even stop to say, oh, I was in her shoes. I was in this same place and it was nothing. Yet people did not believe me. You don't even remember. That's why I say, or I said earlier on, that we will still parent, or we will still do the same thing that was done to us consciously or unconsciously until we decide to be deliberate about it. And that being deliberate only comes with you stopping and doing an evaluation, with you stopping and going down, okay, that lane of how you were raised, and then seeing the things that you could change and the things you could do better with, and all of that. So yes, it's the reason you judge every teenager around you. It's the reason you always think there's something fishing. It's the reason your son is in the toilet for 10 minutes and you are there all over the place wondering what is going on inside there. So basically, what should we do? Rather than approach this with fear, some of us even ended up doing, some wrong things in those period. But basically, they are all still part of the experiences, right? You probably are checking on your son who is in the toilet, your 12, 30, your 15-year-old who is in the toilet. You're probably checking how long he's been there, back and forth, because you know what you were doing in the toilet at 15 and why you stayed there for too long. Now, yes, you had these experiences. Yes, you had these real life experiences. Rather than use it to kill yourself with fear and stress the children. Oh my goodness. I just had a power cut and I am alone. Who is going to turn on the gen for me? I'm sorry. Can you just give me a second? Let me see if I can make something happen. Sorry about this. Oh my goodness. 1 second, please. 1 second. I'll be right back. Ben! Ben! Please, can you turn on this gen for me? Oh my goodness, sorry about this. I live in third world Africa. So things like this happen. I'm so sorry about it anyway. Okay, I'll see if all right, I'll see if the security man can help me. And if that doesn't happen, we will just have to deal with the dark background like this. All right, so let's go on. So basically, rather now you have this knowledge. Yes, you did all sorts when you were 13 and 14 and 15 and 16, or from your experience, people did this and that to you while you were growing up. Rather than approach it from a place of fear and use that fear to stress your children out, stress yourself out, live in a bubble. Why don't you empower your children? Okay, why don't you empower your children? So why don't you go ahead and teach your children, body safety? Why don't you go about teaching your children, have sex conversations with your children? Why don't you go about having sex conversations with your children? These conversations that will make them safe and then make them make good choices when they are 13, 14, 15. Why don't you tell them how to deal? A time will come, in your life when you're 13, 14, you will have to go out, for extra lessons. You have to go out, on your own. You will have to take strolls in the neighborhood on your own. When you do this is how to act. At some point, you're such a pretty girl, you're such a handsome boy. At some point, you will have advances from, people. You have advances from the opposite sex. Be realistic. We live in the 21st century. Say to your child, you are a girl. You might have advances from other girls. Yes, you are a boy. You may have that classmate, that neighbor, that copper, that whoever that is a boy, but hey, we decide that you who is a boy is a better preference for him. Teach your children how to deal with this if they happen to have this kind of circumstance. Yes, let the experience that you had as an adult, as a child, or while growing up, let that experience be used to empower your child rather than for you to live a life of fear and end up parenting from a place of fear. That's number two. Number three, not being supported academically. This is also my experience. All right, people, could you give me 30 seconds? Is that okay to just switch over so that we have some better light here than we have? Is that okay? Let me see the comments. Is that okay? Oh, too many. Let me see. Can I even pause this and do that? Is it possible to pause this and do that? Okay, don't go anywhere. Just hang in there, right? Let me just switch over. So that's what happens when you are alone at home, right? And you don't have back people working for you back end. 1 second, please. Okay. All right, sorry about that. He did a poor job of it, so it's not even coming on. I think there's something he didn't do well. So we'll have to do with leave with this, okay? So sorry. I'm so sorry about this. I wish I could edit it. All right, so sorry about that. So yes, the next one is not being supported academically. All right. Now, some of us grew up not being supported academically, isn't it? We grew up not being supported academically. Our parents paid school fees. They sent us to school, paid school fees, and then that's about it. There was no support from home, academically. They sent us, and it's not just, why am I saying academically? There was no extra support, right, from our parents. Our parents were not involved per se. They were not present, as in really, really present, right? So growing up, I was this very sharp girl, right? So I was this very sharp girl that was doing well on her own, right? Some of us, some kids, like probably because of your temperament, okay, as a child, probably because of your temperament, you are calmer and you're able to, pay attention in your class. So you don't have to deal with all the other excesses that comes with being, a restless child, you quote. And then, of course, teachers tend to prefer children like that, the ones that don't stress them in the classroom. So chances are you're going to be gaining more in a classroom than the child, the very, overly active child in class. Okay, apart from that, of course, science, there's there's the DNA part, your composition and all of that. So some children, okay, if you come from parents who were, all of that. Anyway, I was quite, brilliant as a child and all that. And so I was generally assumed to be the child who needed no support. So right from day one, I had to support myself completely. So at some point, you will get to a point in your life where there will be distraction. You are a child, right? You are a child, or children are children. There is a point where you need the extra nudge here, push here, pull here, support here, somebody championing, telling you can do it, you can do it. But no, I didn't have that. I just had parents who were super proud of me. They were super, yeah, my father did a bit of that with reading and all of that. But apart from that, I was just assumed to be the really very, brilliant child who needed no extra support. Right. Now, knowing this as a parent, now that you're older, knowing the endless opportunities or possibilities, right, that you could have accessed, or if only your parents were more present in certain areas. It could be academic, it could be social, it could be emotionally, it could be any area at all. Now that you know this, rather than look for everybody else, because that's what a lot of us are doing right now. We look for everybody else to support our children except ourselves. So you get lesson teacher, right? The lesson teacher will come. So you're off, the children come back from school. Okay, I know people that when the children come back from school, they end up in lesson one. They finish lesson one, They get home, and when they get home, before they breathe in and breathe out, there is teacher 2 ready to move on with another set of lessons. So at the end of the day, because you feel that the reason you did not get that scholarship into Harvard, the reason you are not Elon Musk, or the reason that you did not create a software, like Mark Zuckerberg, is because you did not have endless lesson teachers pouring into you. So you end up, I want my children to be up there. So you end up overloading them, right? Overloading them with endless information from teacher A, teacher B, teacher C. So at the end of one day, your child would have had access to 10 teachers. Yes. Your child would have had access to his math teacher in school, science teacher in school, literature, home economics, let's say 5 periods or 5 different subjects in school. Then he comes home and then he goes to a center probably for lesson, and he will have access to another, you have another 2 sets or 3 sets of teachers come in. And then he comes home and then there will be another teacher coming. So this child has received instruction from 5, 6, 8, 10 human beings. And this child has not had a chance to self-direct. This child has not had a chance to learn independently. This child has not had a chance for self-expression. This child has not had a chance to tap into their talent or their skills. Talent or interest. This child has not had a chance to learn skills firsthand. And then, of course, this child has not leveraged, or you as a parent has not leveraged on the blessings or the blessings that comes with being able to connect and teach. As a teacher, you can only impact, or the extent to which you impact a child is the extent to which you are connected to that child. And as parents, naturally, by virtue of us being their parents, okay, by virtue of you being a mother, you carried this child, you bonded with this child while you are breastfeeding this child. You had this child, the full attention of this child, the child had your full attention right from when they were born to when they were about 1, when they started crawling and walking around and all of that. Apart from that, you still spend, so your connection is so huge. If only you know the power you have as a parent just because you have that connection. It means that if you're able to put yourself in a place where you can teach your child, the connection part is dealt with. The only thing that is left is them learning principles. So yes, this is how teaching is. Your child must connect to the teacher first, and then the teacher can now teach them principles and concepts. Based on that, your child is able to excel. That is why you hear people say, oh, I had this math teacher when I was in school that I did not like. And that's the reason why math never sat. Yes, there is something like that. It's not just talk. It is true. It is real. That can happen. Because teaching is first connection. So now, as a parent, naturally, or by virtue of being a parent and being there for your children, you have that connection already. All you now need to do is learn how to teach your child by learning. If you don't know how, and then there's this other part that people say that gets me really upset sometimes. Oh, you people as teacher, you're trying, I can't teach my child. I don't have patience. I'll kill him. What are you talking about? If you're in Nigeria, this will make more sense to you. Most of the teachers you have in the classroom in a country like Nigeria, most of the people you have in classroom teaching did not get any teachers training. I hope you know that. Can you remember NYSC? Your friends that were sent to schools to teach during NYSC. You were probably sent to a school to teach during NYSC. Sorry. Those years during NYSC, did you teach those children? Were you not a teacher? So chances are those your friends who decided not to go over to other jobs, right? They stayed back there and they became teachers, and they've been teachers for 2, 4, 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 years. They have learned through they've learned on the job. So they learn on the job. And then in a country like ours, there's really no, I mean, except you decide to go the extra mile and get some teacher training. And now that the authorities, they are really like insisting that you get some sort of teachers training that in many cases are crap. I mean, an educator, I tell you. In many cases, those trainings that they go for are crap. They learn nothing from those trainings. Okay? Except in some, good schools where you have like real people come and train them. So what I'm saying, as a parent, you can get access to those trainings also if you really would like to train your child or like to support your child effectively. After I left, okay, I used to be a banker, and then I went on to work in development, and then decided to go into education. When I got into education, my first stint at education was actually as an administrator. I was a school manager for 2 years. In those years, I was a school manager. What happened was the teachers would have to go for training, and then of course I would have to do the registrations and all of that for those trainings. When I finished registering the teachers, right, my son was about 2 at the time. So there was this time the teachers were going for Jolly Phonics training, like to teach children how to read and all of that. I finished arranging the training for the teachers, the school paid. I took my money and I paid for the training for myself. So yes, I was school manager, but I was sitting down there, not because I was going to go into any classroom. I was sitting down there because I was a parent and I needed to know how to teach my child to read. Boom. Because I was that intentional. Right. There were other trainings. I went for many other trainings. Some trainings I would go at the end of a school day. I would pick my son and I'll take him 1 hour, 2 hours training on a Friday. So they had this facility where the children can stay, and I'll go for a training for 2 hours. Now, this is what I'm trying to, because I understand this and I understand all of this. So this is what I try to do with the parents who join our mentor parent support program. It is just for this reason, because I understand what's going the extra mile to get knowledge to help my child at the time succeed, whether socially, academically, emotionally, and all of that. How those trainings, equips me to support my child. So that's the reason I put the mentor parent support program together, so I can support parents also, so that they can give their own support and leverage on the bond and connection you have with your children that makes it easy for you to teach them and to impact them. So if only you understand this, already you can impact your child because of the connection you have. The only thing you need to learn is the strategies, the tools, have the right tools, and then the strategy to do this, and you can support your child. This is not to say, I'm not saying don't do lesson teachers. I'm not saying any of those things. You can still do all of that, but you can't take away the connection and you being a part of it. You can't take it away. It's not the same. Okay, so I'll rush through the what's left. So that's it for raising them. So you can do all of that rather than bring 1,000 people and continue to stuff your children with stuff that they don't need simply because you are trying to fill in so that they can have a better life than you had because the people back then did not support you. Okay, that's it. The next one is you were raised by religious parents. Okay, this is not my experience, but basically let's look at this. Raised by religious parents. So you were raised by these parents that you woke up in the morning, it was prayer. Morning devotion was long and really intense and all of that, And then, of course, afternoon, you come back and you have to go for house fellowship and all that. In the evening, night prayer. And you know that as a child, those things did not really make an impact per se. Right? Those things did not make an impact. You just practically weathered through them. You know that was what happened. And then of course, that when you went to the university, you went the opposite way. Is that possible? Yes, we've seen many cases like that. Pastor children, we have friends who are pastors' children our life. Sorry, where is the pastor here? Right? So this could be you. I mean, this could be you. This could be what you know. So rather than put your children through the same thing, because without knowing it, you are still putting them through the 5 o'clock devotion. You will wake up, you pray, heavy prayer in the morning and everything, now forgetting that the dynamics are even different. During your time, at least you went to school and you came back from school at 1 o'clock, you rested before you had to go. Now your child will come back at 3, 4. You will still drag him to house fellowship at 5, and all of that and all of that. Is there something you can do knowing what you know? So you can decide to parent your child and to teach your child about your God in a way that is empowering. In a way that is empowering. Bring God to your child in the way that the child will believe in your God. There is a need for spiritual intelligence. There is a need for spiritual intelligence. So you need to start asking yourself, yes, I went for all those masses, 6 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. Papa, I went to church. But ask me if that made, as soon as I had a chance or had the opportunity to be away from that space, if I actually went to church like that, I didn't. So for me, it wasn't, yes, you dragged me all around, but you couldn't sell to me. You couldn't sell to me why I needed to be in church every day. No, they couldn't. So yes, make up your mind that when you teach your child about your God, you will teach your child about your God in an empowering way that your child will love the presence of God. Think of how you could do this. Think of how if you cannot do this on your own, how about mentorship? Get them a spiritual mentor. Make your child, make your connection. It's not every time it has to be read from this book, pray long prayer and everything. Sometimes, why don't you have a conversation? Why don't you take a scripture? Why don't you take a book in the Bible and analyze it with your children? Why don't you do this analysis while you're driving? Do it while you're cooking together. Do it. Have conversations. Let's spiritual things be everyday conversations. They don't have to be when you want to pray, everything go off, everybody keep quiet, everybody stand in a particular way. Why are you lying there? We're praying, you don't respect God. See how you take it easy. You need to sell your God. Okay, you need to give your child or teach your child about your God in a way that your child believes in your God. We've seen children that their parents have hounded them, dragged them everywhere. The moment they stepped away from home, if they tell you or they told you that these children were the same children that prayed every day of their lives, these same children are the same children that went for midweek service and they fasted every January, you will not believe. Nothing in the child's life depicts that this child has gone through all this. Why is that? Because you were never able to sell or present your God in a way that your child believes in that God. So you will have to wait till when they're 35 and 40. This is third world Africa. So you have to wait till when they're in their late 20s and they're desperate for husband, or when they're in their 30s and they want to rise up in their career. Then they will now know God at that point, because yes, that's when we go back to God. We begin to search for God at that time. And then when we get there, we want to blind and deafen everybody, okay, with our love for God. Meanwhile, it is being propelled by our needs. So we need to be careful about this. Okay, I'll run through the other ones. Being abused. So yes, some people got abused as children, got abused while growing up. And so what happened? You ended up telling yourself, oh, nobody will come to my space. Nobody, I can't. So you practically live in fear every time. You're all hovering all around your children. Why don't you have those sex conversations with your child? Why don't you empower your child? Why don't you create policies in your home that everyone who comes in knows what is acceptable, what is not acceptable? Why don't you raise the children in a way that by the time they are preteens and teenagers, they begin to write personal pledges. They begin to write personal pledges. I'm going to be this. I'm going to accept a life of purity. Why don't you sell all of these things that you want to see? Why don't you present them to your child in conversations right from when they are young? Why don't you start having these conversations when they are 6? Why don't you have pledges when they are 8? Why don't you talk about these things right from when they are young? Not from a place of fear, not from a place of if you do it, well, God will punish you, God will not, you will go to hellfire. Why don't you talk to them in practical terms? Why don't you make the conversations around sex so easy that you and your children can talk about sex as if you're talking about a movie? You need to get to that point, and that's how you are empowering the child and not just leaving your fear in your child. Okay, number 7 and the last one is when you are raised in a poor home. So let's make that 2. When you're raised in a poor home or you are raised in a rich home, both of them can be empowering and disempowering. So you're raised in a rich home and you had everything. You had everything, at your beck and call. You had all the people, you had all the workers, domestic workers, driver taking you everywhere and all of that. Okay, and so you decide, oh, I can't give my children a life less of this. My children cannot fly economy. My children cannot, You go all about, all of these things. In all of these, because you have decided that poverty and me were far from each other, which is what each of us is supposed to decide. Okay, but apart from that, how about empowering your children in a way that even no matter what happens, you will still maintain this life that you know, because we have raised you to be a person who understands that wealth is derived from the amount of value that you give. So why don't you raise up children who understand what it means to give out value, who understand what it means to be creators, who understand what it means to be people that they say, hey, nobody is indispensable, but I promise you, there are people that have solutions that everybody, if you have these solutions, people will look for you. If you have these positions, what do you call it? There's certain things that you have, there's certain things that you carry that makes you eligible every single time. Why don't you raise children who have values, that their values are so tight, that their values are so profound, that everywhere they step, they shine. Everywhere they step, they cannot be mistaken. Why don't you raise up children that everywhere they step into, people will know that there is a new kind of child, or there is a kind of child who has stepped into this arena? So why don't you raise children? Why don't we raise children that will stand out every time? That is the only legacy. Okay, that is the real legacy, and that is the real heritage that the scripture was talking about. Such that it doesn't matter how much you have amassed, anything can happen. Your child can bounce back on his own again and again and again, because the child understands the principle behind wealth, not simply because my father has money, and so somewhere we have heard stories of people who thought that their parents had the kind of money that they can never go down, and so things happen in their lives, and just like this, they can find the life that they always had. And these are the same children, for some reason their parents have not empowered them to carry this lineage or whatever it is, to carry it on their own and to recreate it on their own. So yes, you could have been raised from a wealthy home, but remember that the wealth of your home is not the wealth of your child as a human being. So if you don't raise your child to be wealthy in their mindset, okay, if your wealth is not a materialistic thing, it's not a thing of material, it's not a material thing or tangible thing as much as it is of a mindset. So until you raise a child who is wealthy in their mindset, then you have not raised a wealthy person. Okay, then there's this other one. You were born in a poor, from a poor, you had a poor upbringing, from poor background, sorry, and all that. And so because of that, you have hit your chest and you have told yourself, we die here looking for money. Okay? So your children are the ones that are going to be there roasting people's heads because we die on top money. Your children are the ones that are going to do everything possible to place themselves in a place where they can rob Peter, rob Paul, steal from Peter, steal from Paul, steal from the old woman in America, steal from the one in, steal from people everywhere, because you have told them that money is by fire or by force, because you came from where there was limits. I mean, from where you had limitations, and you know what you suffered. You know how hard life was, okay, with these limitations. And so you have raised them with a mindset that they should look for money and dig for it, snatch it from people, take it from people. You've raised them without values. So your children come to you when your children derive, I mean, they come to you and they shine when they have friends who are wealthy. So their wealthy friend, being able to attach themselves to wealthy friends, is an achievement for your children. And then when they come with that achievement, you laud it, right? You laud it because, hey, somewhere you have taught your children, or you have raised your children to believe that, okay, for you to be wealthy, you must make sure you attach yourself to some wealthy person. So your daughter, your 18-year-old daughter, goes about with her whole image, her whole esteem on her head, like Akara, trying to look for some man that she feels is wealthy. So her whole life she's been raised to marry a wealthy man. Right? Okay. Then your son is out there looking and arranging himself, looking all tight, so that he can find the daughter of a rich man, or some rich girl that has, a girl that has empowered herself, or a girl that has done so much for herself, so that he can connect with that one, and then that's how he's supposed to hammer. So you raise children waiting for when they will hammer, not children living their life of purpose and impact and giving out value and being paid and being appreciated and being rewarded for the value that they give. So until, as parents, we can take our experiences, good or bad, and then transform them into empowerment for our children, we're going to go on and live fearful life and make our children fearful. Okay, so this is what we do. We want to raise parents. We want to support parents and teach them and help them get to the point where they begin to think empowerment. So that's what we do in the Mentor Parent Support Program. It's a termly program. You can register and be a part of that program. You can register for 18,000 for 4 whole months. It's not even half the money you pay a lesson teacher for 1 month. So parents, I laugh a lot of times where you launch a course and some parents will be like, oh, it's expensive. Expensive? That's the price of a box of pizza. It's the price of 2 boxes of pizza. That's what you're going to stay and empower yourself with for 4 whole months. 4 whole months, you're going to be guided and supported every day on how you can support your child. You know what? There with you every day, every step of the way. And if you cannot even enroll for the Mentor Parent Support Program, you can join the course that we have this month, okay? The PEP course, Personalized Education Plan. We will create plans for you that you can use to do the same thing, okay? Do some part of what we do in the Mentor Parent Program on your own with the children. It's just that, yeah, you won't be in the community and we won't be holding your hand, for 4 months, but we'll be with you for a whole 2 weeks. And then you can have all of that put together and you can use this framework that we'll create for you over and over again. To enroll for that program is just 7,000 naira. Early bird actually ends tomorrow. So if I were you, I would jump in and take this offer. But I tell you, these are 2 courses that will that will change the trajectory of your parenting. These are 2 courses that will empower you to be the best parents that you can be, and so help your children become the best version of themselves. So thank you very much, everyone who joined me. This is 8 minutes late. We stayed 8 minutes longer. I like to keep it at 1 hour. I'm looking and scrolling around to see if there are questions. It doesn't look like it. Early to bed, early to rise, make me stronger and healthier. You got that right. Love this. Let me share this. Please share, but I don't think you can share from the group. Okay, but you can just tag people on the posts, and they can come and see and watch and all that. Hey Amaka, are you there? I see you. How are you? How is school? All right, so thank you, Juliet. Thank you, Molala, Mary. Thank you, everyone who joined. Okay, if you're catching the replay, just say in the comments that you were catching the replay. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Bye. Bye. Thank you too. You're welcome. All right. Bye. Wow. After all the